Oh, hello, this is Tak Chung from Walk with Tak. Welcome to my YouTube channel. The goal of my channel is to help you to make home cooking practical, efficient, creative, and fun, so you can make home cooking as part of your daily routine. And the goal is that you can use home cooking as a viable alternative to fast and ultra-processed food. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to create a salmon spaghetti using my fast cooking system. And the word fast stands for the 4 attributes of the cooking system, that is flavor chasing, advanced prepping, stir frying, and template-based cooking. I'm going to explain how all these 4 attributes apply to this dish. The salmon that I use in prepare this dish is a good example of advanced prepping. After I purchased salmon, I brought it home. I cut them into small pieces to freeze it, so when I'm ready to use it, I can thaw them out in about 10 minutes in a bowl of lukewarm water. Efficiency and practicality is important in everything that we do, particularly in the case of cooking. You want your cooking to be as efficient as possible. In this case, I demonstrate the efficiency of using a wok to boil pasta noodles. And it turned out that the wok actually is a perfect cooking utensil for boiling pasta noodles because this 14-inch wok is large enough to accommodate the noodles exactly as the way it is. So you don't have to break them. All you have to do is drop them into a bowl of hot water. The wok turned out to be excellent for boiling pasta noodles. In fact, it can accommodate 2 pounds of pasta noodle as shown here. And in fact, it turned out that the most efficient way to stop the noodles from cooking is to transfer the noodle to a large bowl of water. In this case, I have a colander which contains cold water. So I just transfer the noodles. This is safe from empty the water into the sink and much make it easier. As you can see that I have a lot of noodles, but because of advanced prepping, I'm going to use only part of these noodles for tonight's spaghetti dish. I'm going to save the rest of the noodles in a plastic container, and this allows me to keep them in the refrigerator for about up to 2 weeks. I store the noodle exactly the way it is. I do not add any oil or salt, and they store very well as the way they are. And this is important because the simpler you can carry out your task, the more efficient and time-saving that it will be. And this noodle can be used in other type of dishes other than a spaghetti dish. I can use them in lo mein and in a chow mein dish, as I have shown other videos in the past. Prepare the pasta noodles like this will be a demonstration of advanced prepping. I give the wok a quick rinse, and now I'm ready to use wok to cook the next part of this dish. And the next part is I'm going to cook the salmon. I'm going to use a method of known as shallow frying, which I'm going to fry the salmon in such a way that I'm going to put the skin side of the salmon down first on the surface of the wok. Now, of course, I have first seasoned the wok using my spot seasoning method. And by using this Cuisinart 14-inch stainless steel wok, it is truly a wok with great flexibility because I can use it for different type of cooking functions. Now, the reason that I put the skin side of the salmon down is that I want to char the skin. Now, most people do not like the salmon skin, but using this method, the skin of the salmon will provide a crispy texture. In fact, the skin of salmon will not taste oily at all because the oil will be driven out during this frying process. And I call this shallow frying. And there's a reason that I choose this Cuisinart 14-inch stainless steel wok as my everyday wok. One of the main reasons is that this wok is frequently known as a wok pan because the bottom surface of the wok is relatively large, which is about 9 inches across, about the size of a small frying pan. So as you can see in here, this has enough room for me to lay out the salmon, and this will allow me to fry the salmon. There's another reason that I choose a stainless steel wok because a stainless steel wok is more versatile since they do not rust, and you can cook almost anything in them. For example, I can boil water in it without have to worry about them rusting. And also this wok seasons very well, and use my spot seasoning method. It is very simple and straightforward for me to create a non-stick cook surface. As shown here, the salmon do not stick to the bottom surface of the wok at all. I discovered that cutting the salmon up into small pieces has many advantages. One of the most significant advantages is that I can fry individual pieces of salmon separately because the salmons are slightly different in thickness. If I have cooked them in a single piece, some part of salmon will be cooked, the other part of salmon will be undercooked. Using this method, I can treat each individual pieces separately, so in this case, I can cook them accordingly. As you can see that I start to turn the pieces after the bottom surface of the salmon, which is the skin side, has turned to a nice crispy charring. And this actually gives the skin great flavor. And it turned out that this is in fact one of the better part of the salmon. Once you cook it this way, it is actually just the most tasty part of the salmon. At least is how my wife really enjoyed it. Now she is an absolute salmon connoisseur. Salmon is one of her favorite food. Before I start cook the salmon like this, she always complained how the salmon is being cooked and the unevenness of how it is cooked, and also that the skin is turned out to be too fatty for her. But after I cook it in this way, she enjoyed it so much, and she said that's the best salmon she had ever had. In fact, she told me that she will never order salmon out in a restaurant again because like most restaurants, the salmon might not cook exactly the way how she like it, and she always complained about it. And using this method, I'm able to cook the salmon to the way how she like it. Okay, now the salmon is done. I'm going to set it aside. So I'm going to use the wok directly as it is to make the sauce. So the first thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to add some mushroom. These are white mushroom I chop up into small pieces so they will fit to the overall texture of the dish. Now the mushroom actually is important to use at this point because mushroom absorbs oil really well. As you notice that the salmon have gave up quite a bit of oil, and now with the mushroom actually absorbs the oil almost immediately. You can see that now after I just stir fry it for a few seconds, the oil is just pretty much soaked up by the mushroom. To make the sauce, I'm going to use 1 can of tomato sauce, and this is followed by 1 can of diced tomatoes. Now, these diced tomatoes is known as a fire diced tomatoes, that they have been grilled, and it gives really a great flavor. And so that's all I need to make this sauce. Actually, I have some extra sauce from previous day. I used it to make pizza, so I'm going to add that to it as well. And my wife is very specific about the flavor of the tomato sauce. So I'm going to let her take over of this part of the cooking. So she's going to mix everything up. And then she's going to do a taste test and decide what is the best flavor that she likes it. I call this step flavor chasing. Instead of using a recipe, you adjust the flavor based on how you feel like it at the time. So she's going to start out first with the addition of an Italian seasoning mix. And she knows exactly how much she wants to add. At this point, she's in charge in deciding the flavor that she wants. Now, cooking this tomato sauce in a stainless steel wok is probably the best way. If you cook this tomato sauce in a carbon steel wok, for example, the acidity of the tomato sauce will remove the seasoning on the surface of a carbon steel wok. And consequently, that without that seasoning, after you rinse the carbon steel wok, the tendency is for the wok to become rusted. But in a stainless steel wok, you don't have to worry about that at all. And this is the reason why I think a stainless steel wok is probably the most flexible wok to use. And most people like carbon steel wok, and I like carbon steel wok as well. They're less expensive, and they also have great heat transduction. But stainless steel wok is great for when you want to use it for different type of cooking functions. Now, I have now to the point is that I'm going to cut up the salmon into small pieces so they will be able to fit into this spaghetti sauce. Now, this salmon, when I purchased it, it is fresh and have never been frozen. After I brought it back from the supermarket, I cut them up into small pieces as you shown here, and then I freeze them. The advantage of this method is that this will allow me to thaw the salmon out very rapidly based on the way how I freeze it. If I have freezed it in an entire piece, they will take much longer time to thaw. The drawback is that because this salmon is fresh, has never been frozen, the flavor is best when you use them right away. When you freeze them, the longer you have them stored in the freezer, the least desirable their flavor is going to be. Now, this salmon has been frozen for almost 6 months. And so because of this reason, actually it works best in a spaghetti sauce, because a spaghetti sauce, their flavor will blend with the tomatoes and other seasonings in the sauce, so they will be less distinctive. Now, if you eat a salmon, you want to have the best flavor. The best way to cook them is that not to combine them with any type of sauces, because salmon has great natural flavor. But then if there's anything about the salmon, the flavor that has changed due to freezing and storage, that will be very noticeable. But in this case, by combining with a spaghetti tomato sauce, it actually blends much better. This method is also known as combinatory cooking because I cook the salmon separately and then combine it with the spaghetti sauce. This will allow me to control the texture of the salmon exactly the way how I want it to be. Now, this salmon dish turned out to be excellent because salmon actually work great with tomatoes, and using it in a tomato sauce make this spaghetti quite different. Now, this is an example of template-based cooking that I use the basic template to cook the salmon, but by combining it with a spaghetti sauce, it creates a very entirely different type of dish. And last but not the least, I'm going to garnish it with some scallions on the top. And the scallion actually will give the dish a nice onion flavor. As you notice that I do not add any onion to this dish, partly because it is more efficient. Okay, the dish is done, and I think we have a great time cooking this dish together. It took about 30 minutes for us to prepare this meal. And by using the wok, it is really simple that we can do the entire meal in a single cooking utensil. So I post a video each day to help you to make home cooking as part of your daily routine using my fast cooking system. If you'd like to learn more about my cooking system, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. So keep on cooking. I will see you tomorrow.